Let's bring in geopolitical analyst Eugene Chausovsky for more. Eugene, let's jump into Turkey's stance against expanding NATO to include Finland and Sweden. We heard what President Erdogan had to say a moment ago. Will it veto, or do you think Erdogan eventually could be swayed into approving membership, especially with this meeting planned for Saturday?
Right. So I think Turkey plays a very interesting role in this regard in terms of its somewhat independent stance as a NATO member. It's supplied Ukraine with weaponry, but it also has played a mediating role, and it hasn't joined in on Western sanctions against Russia. And now it's voicing some misgivings about, potential Sweden and Finland membership into NATO. But ultimately, I think this is an issue for negotiation. Some of the things that Erdogan brought up in terms of the PKK and other concerns that Turkey has within these countries, but I think perhaps it's looking for some concessions on this issue or perhaps other economic issues. But I think ultimately Turkey can be persuaded to, in fact, approve NATO membership for Sweden and Finland. I
mean, they're working on a very tight timeline here, hoping to have everything sort of wrapped up by next week.
Right, exactly. Well, that's for the application, and then it goes to the different member states for approval, which is where Turkey comes in. But we've seen things like this happen in the past. I mean, Turkey had sort of held up a previous NATO summit and exercises. I think it was back in 2020, where it raised some similar issues over things like refugees and things of that nature. But it eventually did comply. So I think, given the gravity of the situation and how strategic this NATO expansion is for the part of Sweden and Finland, and especially countries like the US, I do think Turkey is still able to eventually be persuaded to comply.
And that being said, how big of a provocation is this? How dangerous could this get?
Well, certainly from Russia's standpoint, they have raised the issue of this being an escalatory move if Sweden and Finland join. Not necessarily that it would raise the risk of direct clashes between Russia and these countries, but if the Ukraine conflict does escalate into a direct Russia-NATO clash, then you can't take that off the ground. So I think in the immediate term, I don't see this actually raising any immediate risks, but I think it is certainly on the path towards more chances or miscalculations that can lead to escalation.
And quickly, if you can explain to our audience the significance of Sweden's desire to join NATO and how that could change the shape of this conflict in Ukraine.
Well, I think this is just simply a reflection of how seriously Sweden and Finland take the security threats with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, because prior to this conflict, even going back to 2014, in Russia's initial invasion of Crimea and eastern Ukraine, popular opinion in these countries was very much against NATO membership, but we've seen just in the last couple of months that swing wildly. So I think this just goes to show how concerned these countries are from a security perspective of Russia's actions in Ukraine.
Eugene Chausovsky, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.